The 2020 elections are going to be here before you know it, and the stakes have never been higher. These elections will decide who will become President of the United States. Oh yeah, and I guess some senators, some members of the House. Oh yeah, and the governors. Governors are kind of important too. And state legislature. And some court votes. And mayors. And probably some aldermen. You know, stuff that really gets you excited. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about the President of the United States of America, the most powerful person in the world. Only the best and the brightest even have a chance to reach this post.
I never understood wind, and I know windmills very much.
And I'm Jill's husband. Oh no, this guy. Oh, you switched on me.
Well, maybe not the best and the brightest, but, you know, very solid, competent leadership that will not lead us astray.
It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
We have to take care of the cure. That will make the problem worse no matter what.
Okay, maybe just, you know, maybe just people that we can trust to do their best if they can.
So it was traded and then watch the hair come back up again.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
This is their new hoax.
What do you want from me? Anyway, the election will be here before you know it, so let's take a look at who's more likely to win, what the candidates have done to get here, and also talk about some recent endorsements. But let's start off with talking about the contenders. Of course, on the right, we have Donald Trump, the current sitting president, who is a 53-ish% favorite, according to current betting markets, to become the president for another term. The sitting president being a favorite to win a second term isn't anything new. They have some pretty sizable advantages. They already have raised plenty of money, so they have good ways of raising more in the future. They already seem presidential because they are president, and they've won before, so they have a track record of winning elections. We can see this effect in recent times with Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton all getting two-term presidencies. Unlike many of his predecessors, Trump's lead here is actually not that substantial. In fact, just a few weeks ago, he was actually an underdog to the Democratic Party. This graph from 538 shows Trump's approval rating over his presidency, and as you can see, a lot more people dislike him than like him, but that has been turning around a bit over the last year or two with just a 7-point difference between them. If you look at the bottom of the article, it shows his graph when charted next to other US presidents' graphs. We can see him against Obama, where Obama has a slight lead, same thing for George W. Bush, and same thing for Bill Clinton, so he's doing a bit worse than many of the other presidents who did get two-term presidencies. If we look at the presidents before those, well, we have a little bit of a mixed bag. We can see Ronald Reagan had a higher approval rating, but he did end up going on for 2 terms. And we do see that Trump's current approval rating is higher than George H.W. Bush and Jimmy Carter. Gerald Ford didn't get a full term, and he's lower than where Nixon was at this point. Man, Nixon must have really done something bad because people really didn't like him after something. Regardless, approval rating isn't the most important thing when we're talking about the next election. We gotta look at the man that he's up against, Joe Biden. Joe Biden had a very interesting run through the primary process. He came in as the odds-on favorite to become the nominee, and then he lost a lot of ground. And sometime around this point is when it happened.
It's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
That debate propelled Kamala Harris to the front-runner position in the Democratic primary. From that moment forward, Kamala started to build some serious momentum towards bankrupting her campaign, which she did just a few months later. After dropping out, Kamala said that she's not a billionaire. She doesn't have the money to finance her campaign. And she's totally right. You can't expect her to be able to compete with Mike Bloomberg and Tom Steyer. That's why those guys did so well. But back to Joe, things got worse and worse for him over time leading up to the South Carolina primary. In fact, before that debate and the primary in South Carolina, he was down to roughly just 10% to get the nomination, which you might be okay with if you were a long shot, but when you were the front runner, it's hardly where you want to be. From there, though, things really started to come together for Joe. He had a convincing performance in the debate in South Carolina. Some people say they think it's his best debate, and he had a strong performance in that primary. Then afterwards, some of his key opponents dropped out that were in his lane, leaving him heads up against Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie was actually in the lead to win the primary nomination for quite some time as the candidate with the strongest base. However, when people cleared out and there were just 2 lanes left, with Joe in the more moderate left lane and Bernie on the more far left lane, well, many people came over to Joe, and from there he steamrolled it into a victory. We can see all of this in this chart from Real Clear Politics, which shows the betting odds on who will become the Democratic presidential nominee. We can see that early on, Joe has the lead. Then we had a brief lead for Kamala Harris. Then we had quite a big run up for Elizabeth Warren, which she then ran back down. Bernie took over the lead, and then it went back to Biden. So it was all in all a very interesting race to follow, but the initial frontrunner ended up taking it down. But what about in the general election? How do these guys match up? Now, typically speaking, betting markets will function better than polls, although polls will influence betting markets, so they're kind of intertwined in that manner. But the reason is because when you have to put your money where your mouth is, well, you're more likely to try and make the right decision than what a poll might indicate. Now, polls are still good and useful pieces of information, so you can use both when you're trying to get an idea of what's going to happen. On Real Clear Politics, we can see a hypothetical matchup between Trump and Biden, and what does that look like? If we look at everyone voting, we can see that Biden has around a 6-point lead, but that's not very important. The reason is simple. Some areas people will win by a lot, and you still get the same amount of electoral votes. It doesn't matter if Joe Biden wins California by 1 million votes or 3 million, he's still just going to win California. When we look at some key states like Florida, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, we can see Biden has small leads in all of them, so certainly plenty to be hopeful for in the Biden campaign. But, and this is a pretty big but, there's one thing the Biden campaign has to be afraid of, and that's Joe Biden.
I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down.
Biden's been taking a lot of heat on the campaign trail for his gaffes and moments where he can't speak clearly. But, I can feel for the guy because my videos are pre-recorded and I still can't speak properly sometimes. Let's head, basically, remember, the majority, and I like his decision, make money at This is an issue though, and it makes you wonder what's going to happen when things get closer and they have a debate. What does a Biden-Trump debate look like? Will Biden be able to hold his own, or is he going to fumble on his words and look weak? This is going to be a very key moment that I'm looking forward to later this year. Biden has recently picked up some important endorsements though. There's 2 real important ones they needed to get, and the first was Bernie Sanders.
So today I am asking all Americans, I'm asking every Democrat, I'm asking every independent, I'm asking a lot of Republicans to come together in this campaign to support your candidacy, which I endorse.
I'm going to assume that this is awkward because some kind of video feed lag, or because Biden thought Bernie was going to stop talking, or what. I really hope this isn't surprising because he was getting endorsed by Bernie Sanders.
Which
I hope. For Biden to win the presidency, he's going to need these Bernie Sanders supporters to come out and vote for him. If, like in the 2016 election, many of them either don't vote or even vote for Trump, then he's going to struggle. This is a timeline from Steve Kornacki on Twitter, and we can see when the last remaining defeated opponent actually endorsed the Democratic primary winner. In most of these, they didn't do it until something like June or July. In fact, Jerry Brown refused to ever endorse Bill Clinton. There are a couple earlier ones, the March 3rd in 2004 and March 9th in 2000, where people got swept on Super Tuesday and decided to endorse the front-running person. I would imagine some of these people were hoping for vice presidential positions, but you never really know. Regardless, April 13th is quite early, so this is certainly going to help out Joe Biden start to build some momentum. There was another endorsement for Joe Biden that was pretty important.
And that's why I'm so proud to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States. Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made, and he became a close friend. And I believe Joe has all the qualities we need in a president right now.
Certainly a big endorsement for Joe Biden, but let's change the tune here for a little bit. I don't want to be one-sided. We also need to make sure we're covering the Republican primary. Yes, that's right. There still is a primary even when there is a sitting president. However, they really aren't primaries because there are no major opponents. So there's a primary where the guy kind of just always wins. And you might not know that unless you follow Donald Trump on Twitter because he tweeted all of his victories against no opponents. We also need to take a look at all of the important third-party candidates running for president. Like, never mind. So who will become the leader of the free world come November? It's a tough question to answer. I think that there are a couple different ways this one can shake out. If Biden can't manage to have some decent debate performances and really get good voter turnout in key states that Trump won in 2016, well, I don't think he's going to be able to win. But if he does manage to pull those things off, he's got a fighting chance for sure. It's also going to matter how America rebounds from coronavirus. If we manage to rebound in a strong way where the economy comes back, we lose minimal lives from this point forward, people get their jobs back, the stock market is doing much better, then we might see a bounce for Donald Trump and he'll be much more likely to win. But if things don't go that direction and they end up being worse or a more prolonged period of time, we could see Donald Trump's approval rating slip even further. I mean, he did get a bounce from the coronavirus the way that he handled it initially, but what will that look like in the long run if people feel like this situation isn't getting better? I think this is a very critical issue for Donald Trump to handle correctly moving forward if he wants the best chance to win come November. So anyway, that's it. It's about 50-50. Flip a coin or something, but you just better hope that it's not a coin being flipped for Bernie Sanders, because then it might look like this. That is a real coin flip from a primary where Bernie Sanders was heads up and then lost the flip. You know, I don't like to get my tinfoil hat on, but as a gambler, this shit just wouldn't fly. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel, and make sure to turn on notifications so you know when my new videos come out. Schedule's been a bit all over the place lately, but we're gonna keep putting out good stuff. I'll see you guys again soon.